The McShin Foundation is Virginia's leading peer-to-peer recovery community organization. So if you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, let us get you connected. Build your self-esteem and lead you to a solid foundation in your recovery. Check us out.
And I'm a person in long-term recovery. Just celebrated 25 years about a month ago. I'm about to put my glasses on. Tom, thanks a lot. I was sharing my wife on the way over here and some of the folks that are in my recovery support group that, Tom made a point is that, the longer I stay clean and the more money, property, and prestige happens, I tend not to come out. But I couldn't think of a better place to come out at is with the McShin Foundation. Plus, John outs you no matter where you are. You see John and Fridays, and he says, hey, it's my buddy Jimmy Christmas. He's an addict like me. So John gets you, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about addiction and care coordination. And the speakers prior to this kind of touched on, I think John Adams, he talked about how we got to get people connected and talking to each other. And I know Mike Zohab just talked about that, how we got to get people connected and talking to each other. So I'm going to talk about it from two different perspectives, definitely from a provider's perspective, but also as a person who has received services and would like to see the same types of services rendered to people I work with. Real quick, a little bit about me. Coming out even more, federal, state, local felon. When I came out of jail in 1991, I was fortunate that there was some reasonable care coordination at that time. I reported to my probation officer, my parole officer, whoever that person was. Anybody know Laura Brown? Yeah. Laura Brown's probably the best. Yeah, and I still see her today. She's all about recovery. So some props to Laura Brown. And I was living at Freedom House, and I was eating and getting counseling at the Daily Planet and Rubicon. Early recovery was a haze to me then. I just followed directions, but I had a plan. I knew where I was supposed to go. I knew I had to go to one place to the next place to get my documentation signed so I wouldn't be violated. And that was my first experience with care coordination. John kind of listed some of the places that I've had the privilege of working with since I have been a professional. I've been a professional social worker since 1994, and I've worked at a lot of locations. And what always got me was I was always concerned about what would happen or what happens for people once they leave the treatment center, once they left the hospital, once they left jail, because lots of resources go into treatment. 30-day treatment, 60-day treatment, 90-day treatment, whatever it is. Lots of resources, the cost of treatment or going to a hospital cost a lot of money. And we just heard all of our candidates talk about the cost of incarcerating someone. And I always wondered about that, and Mike talked about it and John talked about it, was that warm handoff. That's kind of like one of those catchwords that everybody is using now, the warm handoff. And it is so critically important to a person who's fresh out of jail, who's fresh out of treatment and kind of living in a haze. And so as professionals and lawmakers and researchers, et cetera, recovery coaches, we have this awesome responsibility to make sure people get connected to the right services. Now you see this definition that I had, and now it's called care coordination. Years ago it used to be called case management, right? It's sometimes called integrated behavioral health care now, but whatever it is, to me it means the same thing, getting people connected to services. And I like this, the deliberate organization of patient care activities between two or more participants, including the patient or including the recovery person. And we'll talk a little bit more about the responsibility for each person who's actually receiving those services, but it always starts with the people or with the place of origin. I know we talked a little bit about Medicaid being one of the funding sources and whatever, and we know definitely it's about being reimbursed at time. And this is their definition of the ARCH program and what care coordination is. And it's interesting, they have a definition for care coordination and they have a definition for case management. But it all speaks about the same, linking people to those services that are going to help improve their quality of life. I think everybody wants the same thing. So one part of my business, we do a lot of work with people who are being discharged from psychiatric institutions, hospitals or whatever else. And hospitals, what they want to do is to reduce hospitalizations for people, right? And they want to reduce emergency room utilization, and they want to improve quality of care. Well, that's what John wants to do. That's what Mike wants to do. We want to keep folks from not having out-of-home placements. We want to keep folks out of the hospitals. We want to reduce the number of treatment episodes. We definitely want to reduce the number of criminal justice contacts. You know, when I met Mike Zohab, it was just phenomenal to be sitting in front of a criminal justice person and hearing them talk the lingo of recovery. You know, and I felt him. That's why I was reasonably able to support him, because I felt him and what his mission was about. Definitely want to reduce emergency services utilization, overdoses, poor psychiatric functioning, treatment episodes, and homelessness. You know, it's interesting. Sometimes people don't think of homelessness as a crisis or this big thing, but it is. Get homeless and you'll consider it a crisis, right? Yeah, it's serious. And of course, this is the thing right here. And this is what I like to talk about, improving the quality of life of people. And you know, these are some of the basic things that we learn no matter what organization we belong with. You know, it's providing safe, supportive housing. You know, I have that number one. I deal with hospitals all the time. I deal with treatment centers. And the first thing they want to know is what? Where's a person going to live? Where's the home plan? Hospitals, that's the first thing even if it's a psychiatric, if the person was there for a psychiatric emergency, the first thing they want to know is where is that person going to be placed afterwards? Safe, supportive housing, reasonable employment, access to physical and behavioral health care. You know, where's that person going to get a psychiatric evaluation, medication therapy, or just becoming a part of a recovery community? Access to transportation, family reunification. I like number 6, recreation and leisure activities. They tell us what here in recovery. You know, if I'm not having fun, I'm probably not going to stay clean, am I? Right. Definitely. That's a really important place. And the number 7, which is just another way of talking about case management, is access to resources that positively impact the quality of life. So at the end of the day, this is what's important, is that the patient receives, or the client receives, the right initial treatment. They go to the right place. They participate in treatment. And while you're in treatment, identifying the right resources and providers for afterwards. And then you refer to the right provider and the right services at the right time. That's it. That's really it about case management. But somebody brought up a really critical point early on. Sometimes I can go to all those right providers and the right services at the right time, and it just might not be my time, you know? And then we just start all over again. But at least there's this opportunity that starts at the assessment, and we've heard for years is that discharge planning starts at the assessment, correct? That's when we're supposed to already be talking about what's going to happen to me, or what's going to be happening to the person who's in our care afterwards. Here's some perspectives. Here's a patient family perspective, how they think about care coordination. Here are some of the healthcare professionals' perspective on how they think about care coordinating, and systems perspectives. You know, and everybody's got a different take on how this should happen. But what's important, again, like Mike Zohab was talking about, like John Adams was talking about, is that we get a little bit better at connecting the dots. Again, this is what referring providers want. We want to just make sure there's a warm handoff, that the patient who's been in my care for a while, the client that's been in my care, the recovery person that's been in my care, is going somewhere safe, someplace that I can trust, that I know they're going to get good care. And what the receiving providers want is the information that's critically important so that we can provide the best care. How many people have heard of this model before? The patient-centered medical home model. Oh my God, blah, 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 blah. So here's my thing. Guys, I've been working in this field for a while, and we've been talking about this for at least 20 years that I've been practicing. I don't know, and I don't want to step on anybody's feet, if this model has ever been implemented, at least to the quarter of its ability. There's a lot of quick care coordination models out. This tends to be probably one of the most popular. You can Google it and you can find all about it. And yet, I've sat on committees and work groups and seminars, and people have talked around this, but they have not really implemented it at this point. But it begs for those people here in the room to begin looking at it. This talks about some of the elements of care coordination. This is what needs to happen, a revolution. I take this real serious. I work very hard, and I think it's so important that we play well together in the sandbox. Those people in here who are providers, researchers, gatekeepers, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's so important, and it's time for us to change the way. That's what we've been hearing some of our politicians talk about today. Change the way we think about moving forward with healthcare, especially addiction services. What's critically important to me is that those of us that are providing services and who are in the General Assembly and whatever, doing the work that we do, that we talk about each other in good ways. That we don't character assassinate each other, that we support each other and uphold each other when we are around each other. Like the old adage, if I ain't got nothing good to say about you, don't say nothing at all, right? And it's so important that we do that because people are listening. If I don't talk well about Mike Zohab when I'm around somebody else, it's going to get back to Mike Zohab, and we're going to have some feelings about that. And I happen to think Mike Zohab does good services, and the bottom line is all of us have our little niche services, some things that we do well, some things that we don't do well, or some things that we're trying to do better. What I know from all of the people that I've worked with in this room is that everybody's heart is in it. At the end of the day, I haven't known Tom Bannard that long. Tom referred, I think, 2 people to me, recently. I don't know Tom that well. Maybe he knows me a little bit about reputation through Kevin and some other people, but I really held that, I really felt the trust that he gave me, and I wanted to uphold that. And it's important that all the rest of us do that because other people are listening, other people are watching. Again, starting real small. I think in this room right now, we have a mini patient home model. I know Mike Zohab and my organization, we have a MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, right? And that's just a formality because just like with John, we just shake hand and dap in honesty. We hug, and Dr. Thompson, we do whatever we do because we have those types of relationships. But we're now also inviting other people to join us who may not have that same type of feeling yet, that loving feeling. But I think memorandums of understanding the scope of services that the McShin Foundation has, the scope of services that the Virginia Recovery Foundation has, as well as other organizations, is that beginning piece of really making the patient home-centered model a reality, or care coordination a reality. Thank you so much. I got my 1 minute from Alden. And thank you guys so much for being here today. Thank you.